I've never been the kind of person who looks for conflict, especially not with my mother-in-law. I've always treated her with respect, even when it was clear she didn't care much for my presence. From the very beginning of my relationship with Ethan, I could feel Mrs. Margaret watching me with that critical stare, like she was always on the hunt for something to dislike. And to be fair, I'm not perfect, who is? But the problem was, in her eyes, I was a threat. Margaret was the kind of woman who took pride in being the center of the family. One of those matriarchs who needed to have a say in everything, from Sunday dinners to the color of her son's living room walls. And when Ethan finally moved out from under her wing and chose to build a life with me, it was like he betrayed the crown. She never said it outright, of course, but her passive-aggressive comments spoke louder than words. Still, I tried. For almost 5 years, I really did. I showed up to family dinners, celebrated every holiday with a smile, sent kind messages, gave sincere compliments. Even when she compared my cooking to that of the late Aunt Deborah, or criticized the way I folded towels, I smiled and kept my peace for Ethan and for the sake of the family. But then, one afternoon, a simple tap on my phone changed everything. It was a regular day. I was home with our 3-year-old son, Benjamin, when my phone buzzed. It was a notification from the family group chat. I don't usually open it. Most of the time it's just Margaret sending pictures of cakes she baked or updates no one asked for. But something made me check it that day. The message wasn't a picture. It was a voice note, almost 2 minutes long. From Margaret herself. I tapped on it, not expecting anything major. But what I heard left me stunned. Her voice came through with that sweet tone she reserved for people she liked. But the content? My goodness! You wouldn't believe the mushy rice Emily served for Sunday lunch, she began, chuckling. Even the neighbor's dog would turn it down. And she thought she nailed it, poor thing. Ethan must eat her food out of pity. Seriously, I just sit back and watch. That girl doesn't know how to run a house, let alone take care of my son. I froze. My heart raced. My face flushed with heat. It felt like someone had slapped me out of nowhere. And it got worse. And let me tell you something else. If I don't open Ethan's eyes soon, he's going to be stuck with her for life. She acts all sweet, but I know her type. Playing the victim, using his kind heart. A lazy girl dressed up as a good one. A freeloader with a diploma. Then silence. The audio ended. My stomach churned. My son was on the carpet building a tower with his blocks, completely unaware that his grandmother had just unleashed years of bitterness. But what Margaret didn't realize was that she hadn't sent that message to her sister, as she probably intended. She sent it to the entire family group. Parents, siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, everyone. My phone started pinging like crazy. One cousin replied, Margaret. Wrong group. Another said, wow, that's harsh. And then the floodgates opened. Message after message. Reactions. Shock. Some silent. Some. Not so much. I sat there in disbelief. I didn't know whether to cry, laugh nervously, or delete the app forever. But one thing was certain. The carefully crafted image of loving mother she had spent years building, it had just crumbled in front of the whole family. And the best, or maybe worst, part? Ethan hadn't heard it yet. I stared at my phone for what felt like an hour, though it was probably only a few minutes. The voice note kept replaying in my mind. I wasn't just hurt, I was humiliated. It wasn't just what Margaret said about me. It was the way she said it. So casual, so comfortable. Like she'd spoken that way about me 100 times before. And maybe she had. But now the curtain was pulled back. More replies started pouring into the group. Ethan's cousin Molly, always the peacemaker, wrote, "This is really uncomfortable, Aunt Margaret." Then Uncle David, who usually only replied to say happy birthday once a year, chimed in. Totally inappropriate. We all love Emily. That was just mean. Others added shocked emojis or quietly left the group chat altogether. I wanted to disappear, but I also knew this wasn't mine to clean up. So I waited. And then Ethan got home. He walked into the house, briefcase in one hand, takeout in the other. His eyes lit up when he saw Benjamin, as always, and he gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. "Hey, you okay?" he asked. "You look pale." I hesitated. "You might want to check your phone." "The family group." He raised an eyebrow. "Did someone die?" he joked. I didn't laugh. He picked up his phone, unlocked it, and I watched as his thumb hovered over the notification. The voice note was still there, marked as unplayed. He glanced at me again, sensing the tension now, then pressed play. I watched him. At first, his expression didn't change much, just mild confusion. Then, as the message went on, his brow furrowed. His lips parted slightly. By the time his mother reached the part about me being a freeloader with a diploma, he paused the audio and looked at me. "Are you kidding me?" he asked, voice low. I shook my head. She meant to send it to someone else, but she sent it to everyone. He stood still for a long second. Then he sat down heavily on the couch, his hands running over his face. I can't believe she would say this. About you. About us. I sat beside him, unsure of what to say. He had always defended her, always tried to smooth things over between us. He used to say, "She's just old-fashioned," or "She'll come around." But now the truth wasn't something I had said. It was something she had said. In her own voice, with no way to spin it. She's always made little comments. I said softly, "But this is different." He nodded, I still staring at nothing. She crossed a line. We sat in silence, Benjamin humming as he built his toy tower a few feet away, oblivious to the emotional earthquake happening just behind him. Then Ethan picked up his phone again. He scrolled through the flood of replies. His jaw clenched, and then he typed something. I peeked over his shoulder as he wrote, "Mom, I've listened to the audio, and honestly, I'm shocked. You've talked about Emily like this before, haven't you? We always gave you the benefit of the doubt. But now everyone's heard how you really feel. I'm disappointed. I won't let you disrespect my wife or our home like this. I hope you take some time to reflect. We're stepping away from the family chat for now." He sent it, just like that. Then he left the group, and so did I. I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. Sadness because, no matter what, she was still his mother. But relief because, for the first time in years, Ethan finally saw what I had been silently enduring. He heard her, not through my words, but in her own voice. And you know what? I think that hurt him more than it ever hurt me. Over the next few days, I didn't know what to expect. Part of me feared that Margaret would double down and call us dramatic. Another part of me thought maybe, just maybe, she'd feel remorse. But what actually happened, I never could have predicted. The day after the voice note incident, Ethan turned off his phone notifications for good. "If anyone really wants to talk to me, they'll call," he said calmly, though I could see he was still processing. I, on the other hand, received a series of private messages from family members. Some apologized for not seeing the signs sooner. Others praised me for my silence all these years, saying they always sensed tension but never knew the full picture. Molly, his cousin, was especially vocal. "Emily, I've always admired your patience. But after that voice note, you deserve a crown. I'm so sorry you had to endure this." Even Ethan's younger sister, Claire, who was notoriously close to their mom, sent a heartfelt message. I didn't want to believe Mom could be so harsh, but hearing it like that, I feel embarrassed. She had no right to say those things about you. I didn't reply to all the messages. I appreciated the support, but I was emotionally drained. I wasn't trying to become the center of a family drama. All I wanted was peace, a safe home, respect. But Margaret? She stayed completely silent. Not a single word. No explanation. No apology. No accidental follow-up. She didn't delete the message. She didn't leave the group. She didn't even write oops. It was like she vanished. Until 4 days later. It was a Saturday morning. The sun was barely up, and Ethan was out running errands with Benjamin. I was folding laundry when I heard the doorbell. I peeked through the curtain, and my heart jumped. There she was, Margaret, standing on the porch in her signature lavender coat, holding a Tupperware. I opened the door slowly, unsure of what to expect. "Hi, Emily," she said, smiling nervously. "I, brought you some lemon cake. You always liked lemon, right?" I stood there, blinking. For a moment, I wondered if she had decided to pretend nothing happened. But the awkwardness in her voice gave her away. She knew. "Do you want to come in?" I asked cautiously. She nodded and stepped inside, clutching the Tupperware like a peace offering. She sat on the edge of the couch, fidgeting with her hands. I didn't sit down. I just waited. "I don't even know where to begin," she said finally. "I made a mistake. A terrible one." I didn't respond. I wanted her to speak freely. No interruptions, no guidance. Just truth. "I was angry," she continued. "And jealous, maybe. You took Ethan from me. I know that sounds childish, but that's how I felt. Like I was being replaced. You're kind and graceful, and people actually listen to you. And somehow, instead of appreciating you, I saw you as competition. My throat tightened, but I stayed silent. I thought if I made you look bad, maybe it would make me feel better. But all it did was expose me. And I deserve it. That message wasn't just an accident. It was a mirror. And when I listened to it again, I couldn't even recognize myself. Still, I didn't say anything. She looked down at her lap, then back at me. "I came here because I want to apologize. Truly. Not just for the voice note, but for all the small things. The little comments. The cold stares. The comparisons. I was wrong. And I hope, somehow, you can forgive me. For the first time in a long while, I saw Margaret not as my mother-in-law, but as a woman, flawed, proud, scared. Vulnerable. I don't know if I'm ready to forgive you yet," I said gently. "But I do appreciate the honesty." She nodded, swallowing hard. "That's fair." We stood in silence for a moment, the lemon cake sitting untouched on the counter. "I won't overstay," she said as she got up. "Just thank you for hearing me out." And with that, she left. Later that day, Ethan returned. When I told him what happened, he listened carefully. He didn't rush to fix anything. He didn't make promises. He just held me and said, "I'm proud of you." And in that moment, I realized something. Sometimes, we don't need to scream to be heard. The truth, when spoken in someone's own voice, echoes louder than any argument. In the weeks that followed, something shifted in the air. Our home felt calmer. Ethan and I no longer tiptoed around family gatherings or second-guessed how welcome I would be at a holiday meal. There was a sense of freedom in the silence, one that came not from avoidance, but from release. We weren't pretending anymore. The mask had slipped, and strangely enough, that brought a new kind of peace. Margaret didn't message again for a while. Not to me, not to Ethan, but she did begin to repair the bridges she had unknowingly burned. Quietly, humbly, she sent apology messages to members of the family. She even wrote a long note to the family group, acknowledging her mistake and asking for forgiveness, without making excuses. I was surprised by how many responded with compassion. Some said it took courage. Others simply sent heart emojis. But what struck me most was that no one rushed to sweep things under the rug. No one said, "It's okay, we all make mistakes," as if the weight of her words didn't matter. They treated it seriously, respectfully, and that, somehow, helped me begin to forgive her, even if slowly. One Sunday afternoon, about a month after everything happened, Ethan's aunt invited us all for a family barbecue. It would be the first time I saw Margaret again, this time not on my doorstep, but surrounded by everyone who had heard her voice so clearly that day. I wasn't sure if I should go, but Ethan took my hand gently and said, "We go on our terms now. If you're not ready, we don't go. But if you are, I'll be right beside you." So we went. I wore a simple dress, held Benjamin's little hand in mine, and walked into that backyard with my chin high, not out of pride, but because I had nothing to be ashamed of. Margaret was there, helping arrange the table. When she saw me, her smile was soft, unsure. She didn't rush over. She didn't force a hug. She simply nodded, and that was enough for now. Later, while everyone was chatting near the grill, she quietly approached me. "I'm learning," she said, eyes sincere, "about boundaries, about respect, about the difference between love and control. And I just wanted you to know. I'm committed to doing better." It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud, but it was real. I nodded. "Thank you." She looked over at Ethan, who was tossing a ball to Benjamin, and smiled. "You both built something beautiful. I see that now." And for the first time in all the years I had known her, I believed her. As the sun began to set and the barbecue slowly turned into an evening of laughter and music, I stood next to Ethan and watched our son run around with his cousins. And I thought about how everything had started with a mistake, an accidental message that wasn't supposed to reach me, let alone the entire family. But maybe that's exactly what was needed. Not for revenge, not for drama, but for truth. Sometimes, the things we try hardest to keep hidden are the very things that need light. I used to think silence was strength, that swallowing insults, turning the other cheek, and forcing smiles was the only way to keep the peace. But I've learned something far more powerful. Truth, once spoken, even by accident, has a way of shifting everything. And sometimes, that's exactly what a family needs. Not perfection, but honesty, even when it's messy.